So, let me explain first. My if I might sound like I'm rushing or something like that is mainly because the fact that this recording clip or the previous one corrupted, and so I'm having to retake this. Okay, so first and foremost, this is basically the story of when I worked at Walmart, or well, my Walmart story from basically year one of working there. The best way I can describe it is it's been an adventure that has been one that I will probably never forget, and just like the Dollar General, I usually don't forget things, and some things that I wish I could forget, I can't, and it sucks, but where to start? Okay, so let me just restart it from the beginning. Walmart is one of the places that it is just one of the things that I can... It's eventful. Okay, so my very first time ever working at a Walmart, it was in West Virginia. And going from West Virginia, moving all over the place. Basically, I was trying to initially get onto my feet, and I moved in with my grandmother, and from here on out, on any of my videos with this kind of stuff, I refer to my grandmother and grandfather on my dad's side as Mama and Papap, and my grandmother and mother, or grandmother and grandfather on my mom's side is just Grandma and Grandpa. But I was living with my grandma in Arizona. This was Tucson, Arizona. I was living with her, and she gave me 1 week to essentially find a job, and I'm like, I've only got one job experience under my belt right now, and that was working as a cleaning captain as a Taco Bell. So my first instincts was, okay, let me apply to a Taco Bell. I really wasn't very much responsible. I was quite the arbitrary and just kind of a shithead, but I was kind of slacking off at the time. I was basically trying to get a job, and I was just the usual teenager stuff. But the point was that when I actually eventually failed to meet her requirements, she bought me a Greyhound ticket without even letting me know or asking me. She's like, here, by the way, let's go for a car ride and pack your things. I'm like, well, first off, why the hell am I packing my stuff? I want to know that reason. She didn't tell me. She just said, pack your things. I was like, okay, sure. So I packed up my stuff, and basically I don't have very much things. I've literally got one duffel bag and a backpack, because that's literally my entire livelihood. A duffel bag and a backpack. So I eventually just got my duffel bag, I got my backpack, and I just kind of like, alright, let's go. So she drove to the Greyhound station, and she was like, here's the ticket, by the way, have fun, your mother's gonna be waiting for you. And I'm like, wait, you didn't even consult me or ask me for this first? And she's like, nope. And so eventually I was like, well, I'm already here, can't really do anything about it, because literally either that or I would just walk in the street with a duffel bag and a backpack, and this duffel bag is a good easy 35-40 pounds. It literally had everything I owned inside that duffel bag, as well as my backpack had a couple bit of clothing. So eventually I took the Greyhound to West Virginia, and my mother immediately was like, hey, find a job. Just out the gate. But I'm not going to be unreasonable. I'm going to give you like maybe a month. So my month started. I started looking for a job. I went day by day, trying to make sure that, oh, hey, I'm looking for a job, I'm trying to find some things, I'm trying to find some work. And West Virginia is a low poverty state. It is actually the lowest poverty state from at the time. The minimum wage is only like $7 an hour. It's not a lot. Eventually I started applying for jobs, and eventually I was like, oh, let me just apply for Walmart, let me give it a shot. At the time, I didn't really take it seriously. I was just like, okay, sure, let me give it a shot. I'd rather find something local, but it's 2 cities away. And West Virginia, literally, you can walk 5 miles and travel through 5 cities in each mile. That's how low poverty West Virginia is. Eventually, I got a call from the first Walmart Supercenter up there in Summersville, West Virginia, and they're like, hey, we'd like to interview you. I'm like, okay, sure. And I've went in, I got a ride, went to the Walmart, and I did my interview. It was alright, it was good. I did the usual thing. I didn't really have any experience. But when I eventually got hired, they hired me as a lawn and garden associate. Basically, they ran me through the ropes. They told me what to do. The assistant manager was really cool. I liked him a lot. He was a really nice, chill dude. I had an issue with the support manager a lot, often, though. So, from time to time, I was like, hey, I saw the assistant manager that I worked for, and I was like, hey, dude, can I talk to you for a minute? He's like, yeah, sure, what's up? So, we sat down, we chatted, and basically was like, hey, what's with this support manager? She seems to be like really grouchy and rude all the time. And it seems to be more directed to the new people, I've noticed. And especially me, since literally she's there when I work. And then he went and told me that actually she was used to be an assistant manager and she was demoted. So she lost her position as an assistant manager. She became a support manager instead. And that was the beginning of the end, basically. When I actually started doing my research, I was like, okay, cool. I tried to keep on good terms. I tried to do what I can. I tried to keep a level head, basically. Well, the beginning of the end basically happened when I walked in one day. I had a lot of issues. I wasn't really responsible at all. I was very much acting as a child and basically being the rebellious teenager and whatnot. There's a whole nother story for that one of why my mentality was a few years behind what it should have been. When I walked into work, I've already been written up quite a few times because of my rebellious acts and whatnot. But when I actually eventually got in there, I worked, I was doing my thing. We had a shipment of like 4 to 5, can't remember exactly, it was a long time ago. It was like, no, it definitely was 5. It was, yeah, no, now that I actually really think about it, it was 5 lawnmowers, not 4. These riding lawnmowers are about 500 to 600 pounds each. We've got like 5 of them just sitting out there in our patio, just sitting there, and the morning shift didn't do anything to unpack it or anything. And literally, when you unpack a riding lawnmower, it comes in a nice crate that they nail together with like heavy duty construction nails, and the plywood is not even plywood, it's actually solid wood. And so I have a crowbar, I've got a screwdriver, I've got everything I need to rip these crates literally around these riding lawnmowers. Even under the wheels, it's there, the crate is there. So I'm sitting here unpacking literally 5 riding lawnmowers by myself. Eventually, my coworker that I was working with in lawn and garden that day left. He went home. So he had to clock out and he went home. When he went home, now I'm alone. I have to manage the register. I have to help customers, as well as I got these lawnmowers inside of crates that I have to open up by myself. And I also now see the support manager. Literally, it was coming about the end of the day. It was like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. And I see this support manager she's already coming at me. I see her in the department inside, walking around, looking at things and whatnot. I'm sitting here prying a freaking crate open. And immediately as soon as she's done walking around, she comes out to the patio and it's like, hey, you've got a front face, you've got a zone, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, you've got to clean, you've got to do stock, you've got to do top stock, you've got all this shit. And I'm like, listen, what do you think I'm doing? Because this is technically stock as well. And this is not an easy task. This is not a small task. And I literally said this directly to her, and I got written up for it. I don't know how I managed to get a write-up, but I just simply straight up said, listen, if you have an issue, come out here and help me. Because this is not an easy task. She did not like that. One bit. She turned around, walked inside, and went back to the toys department. And I was like, whatever. So I'm sitting here prying the last one open because I was halfway done with the second to last one when she came out there to say that to me. I eventually got the last one done. I wheeled it off around the outside of the gated patio all the way to the front of the store where, here's the patio, here's where all the lawnmowers are in front of the store, and I've got a good solid maybe 400 feet of walking with pushing a 600-pound lawnmower. So I go and I complete that task. I lock them up. I take the riding mower keys so we can keep it in the lockbox we have behind the register. Since I'm working alone in that department right now, I have all the keys for lawn and garden. I have the gate keys, I have the register keys, I have the alpha key, I have literally the door keys even. And, well, she basically was, as soon as I finished that, she came around, and it's already 9:40-ish. I knew immediately that I'm probably going to be pulling overtime and whatnot. And I was like, I even already sent a text to my mom saying, hey, I'm probably going to be a little bit late because I'm working alone and I just had to unpack 5 lawnmowers and I'm a little behind. She's like, okay, cool. But eventually when my mother was already outside waiting for me. Basically, I see that the support manager, she starts coming around, she comes looking at me and is like, why aren't you doing anything? And I'm already sitting there, literally unboxing things, putting things on shelves. I was standing next to the pallet with a box open and my box cutter in hand, nonetheless, with the handheld in my other one. Because I just finished opening the box, I was about to put my box cutter in its holster, and I had the handheld ready to go to scan the item. And she's like, why aren't you doing anything? She started going at me, and she's just being absolutely rude, and I wasn't having it. I was done. I was like, you know what, screw this. And I just eventually, as soon as 10 o'clock came around, I was like, Mom, I'm coming. I'm going to be outside in just a minute. And she's like, okay, what changed? I was like, I've had it with this support manager, and technically it's my clock out time, so I can just leave. And she's like, well, that's fair. And she's worked Walmart before, so she knows exactly how that situation is. And since the support manager riled me up, she pretty much got me angry. I left the keys on the register. When I came in the next day, I was told I was terminated. And I was like, what did I do? And it was like, you left the keys on the register. And I was like, can I explain myself? And the managers, of course, let me explain myself, but it didn't save my job at all, because leaving the keys on the register is a big no-no, and it's grounds for immediate termination on the spot, technically. So I lost my job. I literally have already saved up a couple $100 because my dad was pulling like 70 to 75% of my paycheck every time I got paid. And so I bought myself a Greyhound ticket to come back to Arizona. And when I got back to Arizona, I started looking for a job because now I'm living with my mama and pap, who have graciously let me try to get back on my feet, essentially. And they've always been there for me. They've literally, I can ask my mama a question and she will most likely have the answer 9 times out of 10. So when I actually eventually got there, I started applying for things. I started doing things, and about like a month or two later, I get a call from the Walmart in Shiloh, Arizona saying, "Hey, can you be in tomorrow for an interview?" And I'm like, I can be there for an interview, but it's not going to be tomorrow because I'm not in Shiloh right now. I have to get a ride to get there first. And he's like, "Okay, cool. What's the day that works for you?" And I was like, "Okay, a Tuesday will work. I'll be there Tuesday." And he's like, "Okay, cool. We'll see you Tuesday." So when I eventually got there, I spoke to the guy. The HR guy was really chill. He had a lot of connections. He even knew a lot of things about Arizona. And I was like, "Oh, cool. Well, hey." But when I went to when I went to that Walmart, I talked to him. I did my interview. I did orientation, and they got put me on their cashiering. Well, when I go into the cashiering, I basically started cashiering very slow. I was trying to get the ropes. I was trying to learn how to do it. It really wasn't that hard initially, but when I eventually got to it, I was doing really good, and I was quick. The person who trained me, she was been there for already like 2 years. Her badge had the 2-year vest, or the 2-year mark on it, and well, she trained me, and she was normally put on the fast checkouts, which we're talking the actual where you pull your cart to the actual register, not a self-checkout. There's something known as the fast checkout or the hot line. And she worked the hotline a lot. And because she would pull roughly for, like, we're talking maybe 700-ish items an hour, which that's really good, to be honest. When I eventually started, I started getting really good at it. I started going quicker. My very first ticket, when I checked my items an hour, it was only like 550 items an hour. I was slow. I mean, for some people, 550 items an hour is still real quick, but you gotta realize that's not exactly very quick. Because this is items per hour. Excuse me. But basically what happened when I started getting quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker, then I noticed my items an hour started increasing because I was getting experienced with it. I went from 550 to an average of 780, and after that point I clocked my highest record of 1,574, and yeah, 1,574, and that was my highest record. That was cap. That is me going absolute full speed on a busy day like a Black Friday or Christmas. So retail during those times gets really busy really fast. When I started going about, I just doing my usual thing. There was a day when a customer came in and I just clocked in, and the person who checked that customer out had left already. He went home. The guy came up to my register because he was checked out at that register. He was like, "You made an error." I was like, "Listen, sir, I just clocked in. I just got here. The guy who checked you out is already went home. You gotta go to customer service to get it fixed." Simple as that. When he just got so furious because there's a lady who was literally right there. I was about to check her out, and this guy just literally abruptly cuts her off just to yell at me, essentially. And it didn't really... It was just him yelling at me. I was trying to defuse the situation. At this point, the CSM's already looking at my register, and the AP guy who was in charge at the time, he was right there talking to the CSM, because the AP and CSMs usually communicate a lot, because this is a super center. This is a big store. The AP guy is standing right there talking to this CSM, and this guy is yelling at me in my face, almost getting in my face. Eventually, it wasn't until he tried to right hook that I put my arm down hard on him to kind of just slam him on my belt. The thing that usually, the belt is usually the thing that all the items, you would take your items out of the cart and put onto the actual belts that would pull it to me. At that point, it caught the attention of the CSM and the AP, as well as the store manager. Immediately, all three of them started coming over here. They saw that, they just literally watched it all happen, and they realized that I was trying to self-defend myself because this guy was literally about to physically assault me. So when that happened, they took him by force, which that's not something for Walmart standard protocols, but this guy was so livid and enraged that we had to take matters in our own hands at this point. They took him to the AP office, where they usually hold the people until the actual law enforcement officers get there. So when they were holding him in the AP office, basically at that point, I was just trying to go about my day and just whatnot. There was not really anything special that happened from that point till when I got moved overnight as an overnight maintenance with a waxing specialist title. Now I'm working overnights. I got a pay raise because just simply I work overnight instead of working the daytime. That's immediately a pay raise, apparently, with Walmart. Like a 50-cent raise. Okay, to me, that was a big deal because right at the time, this is the most highest paying job that I've had. I was working $11 an hour as a cashier. Working only like 20 to 30 hours a week. So now I got moved over to overnights. I got a 50-cent raise. Now I'm working $11.50 an hour at 40 hours a week. So I really picked up a lot of cash at that point. I was engaged at the time, and me and my fiance, we had decided, oh, let's get our own place together, and sure enough, we did. And we were really, for the first couple, or like the first while, it was fine, and I was working, she was working. She works as a Fresh Cuts and Safeway, or at the time she was, and I was working as overnight maintenance as a waxing specialist. So she's gone in the daytime, I'm gone at night. That caused a bit of a rift because I'm not there when she's there, and then when I am there, I'm always asleep because I'm trying to rest because I work overnight. And literally, I go into work at 6 p.m. That's literally 4 hours. Well, it's like 7-ish when I get there, but it's like 4 hours because the bus stops running at 7. So literally, I take the bus at 6, like 6:30ish when the bus gets there on its final route. But I actually had to move over to the earlier one because for some reason they just stopped running early when they shouldn't have. But I was sitting there, they actually had to take me to work, and then it was 7 o'clock when they got there, and I would sit there in the break room. And I had my virtual reality headset at the time with a laptop, a gaming laptop that can support it. And I would play virtual reality until 10 o'clock. So I was in the break room, and the store manager, the assistant managers, the co-owner managers, they all noticed that. And they're like, why are you here so early? Why are you doing this? And I specifically told them, I don't have a car, and I live literally on the other side of town, and my only means of transportation is a bus. And the bus stops at 7 p.m. And they understood, and they let me do my thing. When I was working overnights, there was the guy, he was a CSM, but he was training me because he was basically going back and forth from the front end to the back end, running both departments at the same time, which he can't be doing. So when they started looking for they started looking for a department manager to take the role, or a person to take the department manager role. There was like 5 of us who moved and transferred from the daytime to the nighttime as maintenance, and I was the only one left. That was so I was working alone for about 6 months, or not even. It was like a month or two. But they said, "Hey, we want to make you a department manager." I'm like, "Sure, I'll take it." So they set up my numbers and my credentials so that way I can access things, but they did not give me the title, and they did not give me the pay. So I was still just a standard associate with special credentials at that point. I was in charge of ordering things, I was in charge of training people, I was in charge of making sure everything was done, I was in charge, on top of all that, I had to wax the floors and clean and scrub them as well at the same time, all at once, because I'm flying this entire department basically solo. So here I am yet again running the entire department by myself with no help. I got good at it. That was the only difference this time. I got really good at it. Waxing is a long process that takes about 8 hours-ish, and I can use the riding Zambonis, which are what we use to kind of scrub these supercenters floors, because in this state, in Arizona, the store I was working at was the second to largest store from what I was told. I don't know if it really is the second largest store. I can't claim that it is because they all look alike to me. I just work there. I just do the job. Well, eventually, when I've already trained 5 people at this point, and I'm sitting there waxing. I was sitting there with my associate, which I was in the middle of training him for waxing, and the assistant manager basically came over to my area and is like, "Hey, we need someone to clean the floors. We need someone to use the Zamboni to scrub the floors." And I'm like, "Well, where's my third guy?" He called in. And I was like, and I wasn't told this because I can't see those things yet. That stuff I cannot check until I'm officially a department manager. I need to know this kind of stuff before I start my day, so that way I can work around it and actually work with my associates who are on shift at the time and get it done. And now you want me to go scrub the floor within 3 hours? That is an 8-hour job. You want me to squeeze into 3 hours of work? It's like, well, get it done. I don't care how you do it, just get it done. I was like, fine, I'll do it. I'll get it done. So I walked through, I helped my associate try to get things done. I told him, hey, so after you do this, this, and this. If you need me, come find me. You can find me riding around the store, basically. And he's like, all right, cool. So when I actually eventually got the Zamboni set up and whatnot, it takes usually about 15-20 minutes to actually get it set up properly. And you can do it in 10 minutes if you're really rushing it. Because we have to basically open up the entire thing. We have to fill it up, literally full, and then use it to scrub. And the reason it takes 8 hours is because you got to do that twice, like 3 times. And you've also got to drain it, empty it, rinse it out, and refill it just before you can do it again. Well, when I did that, it was already like, I've already gotten the floor once, because it's a big store, and supercenters are usually big. So when I actually started going and actually cleaning the floor, I actually did it. I got it done, and the assistant manager was happy with it. I was like, cool. Can I go home now? I'm tired. And she's like, yeah, sure, go home. And so I went home. I did my usual thing. I just went to bed, because at that point, I'm usually always tired when I go home, because it's literally 6 p.m. it's like 6 p.m. to 8 a.m. I'm not home because I'm at work, because I have to fit my schedule with the bus so that way I have transportation. Because it's too dangerous for me to be riding a bike when I'm super tired, especially going up hills where I can easily just topple over and fall down. So I got home, I went to sleep and whatnot, and then I woke up the next day. I went to work, the usual. There was just 2 of us today, and I knew that it was only 2 of us because I knew the schedule said that it was only 2 of us. Because I had to literally talk to my associates to see when they work, because I can't schedule yet. So I started, me and the associate, we started working. I helped him through. He was already a little bit more experienced, because the guy I was training the day before, it was his day off. So the guy that I actually had with me today, he was a bit more experienced. He knew what to do. And I was like, all right, so we need this floor waxed today. I gotta go scrub the floors. He's like, all right, cool. Power went out. That was a lot of fun, because now me and this associate who's working on that floor, luckily everything was charged already. So the riding Zamboni that I was using, the scrubber that he was using, they were fully charged. So we got lucky and dodged a bullet. But we had a new problem. Since it is dark and there's no windows in a supercenter really, we were working in the pitch black, where it wasn't until like 3-4 minutes until the actual floodlights came on, so that way we can kind of see what we were doing. I'm sitting here scrubbing the floor with the Zamboni, and then I see the assistant manager walking around with a box of headlamps, and I was like, I take one, I put it on the Zamboni around, I kind of stretch it around so that way I put it on the Zamboni like it's a headlight. And it was pretty inventive for me, and a lot of people said, that's pretty inventive, that's pretty clever. And I started just going about my way and just scrubbing the floor. My coworker, on the other hand, was freaking the heck out though. So I went over to check on him. I was like, hey, how you doing? I was like, I can see him literally panicking, like, because he can barely see, and I don't blame the guy. He's panicking hard. So I help him finish it up. We actually underdid the coats of wax. Technically, we're supposed to do 5, but we only got 2 down because it was dark, and it's really hard to wax when you can't see the wax. So we're working with it. We get the final coat down, and I just said, take a broom and just sweep. Here's a light, and he goes about and starts sweeping. When the lights finally came back on, we have lost over $40,000 in products. So we had a team of people coming through with CVPing them while we're trying to work at the same time. So we've got people in the aisles, like there's 7 to 10 people in one aisle. And I'm like, hey, I need you guys to move so I can clean. And they're like, well, there's nothing we can do. We've got to get this done. Yeah, I've got a job to do too. Eventually, they were stepped out of the way after reasoning with them, and I just kind of quickly went through. And I was to the point, I was so tired, because when you're sitting on something like that, scrubbing the floors, the vibrations that it gives off from the scrubbers moving and all that stuff, your body goes into a relaxation state, which is dangerous because you're vulnerable to fall asleep while driving. And I will admit I have once or twice. I've actually, one time I was so tired and my body ended up being so relaxed that my foot fell off the brake onto the accelerator and I ran right into a freaking pole. Luckily, I didn't get hurt, but some people saw and they came over to check on me, and it was all good. Eventually, after a couple of days, I was getting tired because I was doing the Zamboni and whatnot, and the assistant manager came up to me. She's like, hey, you're missing things. And I'm like, okay, look, I'm tired. I've been working these hours without the title, without the pay. You want me to continue doing this? I can't be doing this for years without the title and pay, because it's starting to interfere with my work. It's starting to interfere with my personal life, and there's nothing coming out of it. Here's my 2-day notice. That was it. After the 2 days, I put my vest on the personnel's desk. I left. I was done. No more. Then COVID hit. That was a new problem. I was having an issue trying to get a job at that point. It was just a problem after a problem after a problem from there. As soon as COVID started, things started piling up and getting worse and worse and worse and worse. There was nothing I can do. I just had to keep going. And basically, it was one of those things I just dealt with. Eventually, I got this store. I got to get hired by Dollar General, and not more than 3 months later, I had to move out, and I went back to Arizona. I went back down to southern Arizona in Marana. I transferred my job to that Dollar General, which you can find on the card, like right here, I believe. When I eventually had to move again, and I moved to a different state, which is where I currently am now. I was looking for a job. I got a job and then lost it not more than like 2 weeks, because apparently I was not what they were looking for, and they really didn't give me a specification of what I was supposed to do. So, and they didn't give me any details. They didn't give me a reason or anything. They just like, here's your paycheck. It was nice knowing you. And at that point, I started hightailing my ass to find a new job again. And long and behold, I'm getting hired by another Walmart. And this time it's a neighborhood market, not a supercenter, which was a curveball. Because normally neighborhood markets are more geared and focused towards food rather than general merchandise. I'm sitting there at the orientation, and the the HR guy, the people lead, it's called a people lead now, he was impressed by my knowledge of Walmart to the point that he started quizzing me on the fly right in front of the orientation group. And a lot of people noticed that I know what I'm talking about, because I've already experienced Walmart for 4 years, and their policies and their standard procedures and the whole 9 yards, basically. When I actually eventually got to starting my position as a deli associate, this is so far like my highest paying job ever, as well as I'm still keeping like 40 hours a week, which is kind of nice. So being the highest pay, being the highest amount of hours, I'm sitting on a cushion, or so I thought. So bills are always gonna be a thing. That's unavoidable. I've got a phone bill now. I have an internet bill, as well as I'm paying rent and electric. And actually gas as well for the heater. I'm sitting here with all these bills, so it adds up to be about 1,500-ish, roughly. And I'm sitting here paying those bills. I'm working my job, and there's been ups and downs. And it was until it was pretty fine. I was getting along with everyone and whatnot. It wasn't until about a couple of days ago. It was maybe a week, maybe two. I don't remember. It was a little bit ago, but I was just finishing my shift because I was working solo, and well, basically, I already seen this lady who walked by once. She walked by. She looked at me like 3 or 4 times. Because right there is the pastry table, as well as the eggs and some of the dairy, and as well as the cheesecakes, and usually the more essentials and sweets at the same time. She's seen my necklace. I know she's seen my necklace because I usually don't hide it, because it's something that is a part of me. It's who I am as a person with like my. I usually don't mention anything about religious beliefs or anything like that, because there's no point in it when bringing that kind of stuff up when you're working. Well, when I was finishing up my job, I was finishing up my closing tasks. I've already just cleaned the slicers. I've just cleaned the floor, and I've pulled out the mini freezer because it has an overheating problem. Well, when I finished all those things, I went and clocked out, and I was going out to my bike because I have a bike this time that I take to work, and I'm sitting there. I take my keys off my belt loop and I start unlocking my bike lock, the usual thing that I do every day, and I hear coming from behind me, "I hope you burn in hell, you Satanist." I turn around and see that same person that I just saw over when I was in Delhi, who looked at me like 3-4 times, pointing at me, walking towards me. My thought of reasoning nearly almost just went out the window, and I was about to hit her. But I knew better to, and I kept my self-control. Because I'm literally standing outside in the parking lot of my work. I don't feel like having on record that I assaulted a customer in the front of the building that I literally work at. So I started explaining to this lady, who I finally found out that literally she's a Karen, and she had a cross on her neck, and I was like, "So I see that you're either Catholic or Baptist or Christian. You're a Christian of some sort." And she's like, "Yeah, what of it?" Well, basically, would you be offended if someone took that cross and flipped it upside down? One word came out of her mouth, and she said, "Yes." Well, now you know my problem. My start is the same way. This so-called Satanist that you literally just accused me of did the same thing. They took my star and turned it upside down. As soon as I mentioned that, she took a double take of what she said. She looked at me, noticed my star was actually right side up, not upside down, and started apologizing. Technically, I could have taken her down for hate crime, but I'm not that kind of person because I'd rather not deal with that legal paperwork, and I honestly can't afford it. I really can't. And so the Karen basically started apologizing to, like, oh, I'm sorry. And I'm like, listen, lady, it's all right. I've had to explain this to a lot of people before, that it's a misconception that a lot of the Catholics, and it was mainly Catholics, and she was like, well, I'm not Catholic. And I was like, I know, I didn't say you were Catholic. I was like, a lot of the Catholics are the reason why my religion are seen as Satanists, even though we're not. So after I finished explaining to this lady of what it was really versus what the stereotype that was put on my religion, she was still apologizing, saying, I'm sorry, I didn't know, I didn't realize. And I was like, well, now you do, and I'm not holding you against for it. I've been trying to keep my cool this entire time because given my retail experience, you deal with all kinds of things on a daily. Sometimes you'll see things you've never seen before. I mean, there was a time I literally was doing CVPs, I was doing stocking, and then I went out to the floor to kind of just put new things out. And then I literally see one of my pinwheels that I just made had been opened, eaten, and there was only one left in there. And I'm like, and sealed and put back into the same exact spot it was pulled out of. I chuckled and laughed because that was the funniest thing I've ever seen. I've never seen that before. And so I took it, did his CVPs and whatnot, and well, I just literally said to that lady that, hey, next time, just, it's better not to say anything or bring religion into it, because you're going to eventually say it to the wrong person, and it's going to go wrong. I'm usually kind-hearted and soft, but when things go wrong and my aura is out of alignment, it's like I'm a whole different person. So my roommates have started explaining to me that I not only become a different person, I'm split into literally two different people. One side that is reasonable and it's me, and the other side that is literally full of violence and trying to commit suicide and all this shit. And I didn't even know it was there until they explained it to me, because it's like half of me just dies or just shuts down or something when that other half of me just comes out. And it's another reason why I try to do things, and I'm trying to open up, trying to cope with things, learn, and I'm trying to do, this is experimental for me right now, doing these videos, and I'm hoping they work, because I feel like I'm trapped, I'm closed off, and I've noticed I've shut down. I hide in my work, I hide in virtual reality, I just pay no mind to the real world around me anymore. I've ended up going from being the loving character and person that I am to shutting down, closing out my friends, and burying myself in work, or hiding in virtual reality and putting a fake face on where I can escape the real world. There is one more thing I'm going to mention about actually the Walmart story, and it's very recent, like we're talking only 2 days ago of when I recorded this video. It may upload a different day, but when I recorded this video, it was only 2 days ago. I had an issue where It was a normal day. I woke up, I did my usual thing. I got ready for work. I went to work, and the first thing I see is the trainer, the people trainer. I don't know these new roles yet. They're still new to me. She was standing there. She started explaining to me that, hey, you got to make sure to do this because it's very important. And I remember in my training, nothing said that it was that important. So I didn't even know that. And literally, it was bad enough. And literally, it's something that she told me that if I'm not careful, it ends up as a felony. And I was like, wait a minute. You're telling me after 2 days of missing this or incorrectly labeling it, it'll end up as a felony because it wasn't correct? And she said yes. And that's a lot more serious than I thought, because that's something that should be explained, I feel. And it's something that should be explained on a high level, because a felony after 2 days of missing it can be a big problem. So I've just kind of just like, all right, I'll try to keep that in mind, because that is a pretty serious thing. So nothing was really wrong. I was explaining to her that, hey, it's all right. Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Thank you for telling me and teaching me, then telling me that that's that important. Everything was fine. Our oven guy, the guy, we put it in a work order the day before to come get a guy out to fix our oven because it was leaking and it wasn't draining correctly. So we had chicken broth literally just all over the freaking floor every time we did rotisserie chickens. When the guy came out to fix, we kind of chat. We had me, my coworker, and him. We all chatted. We were doing our work, the usual thing. And he was a pretty cool guy. I liked him. But when he left, finally, it was just me and my coworker. She was alright. She was mellow. She went to lunch. I was there working by myself and whatnot. And then I went to lunch. This is where everything basically took a 180. I come back from lunch and literally not even a second. I didn't even get a time to take off my hoodie yet because it's cold outside. She was like, hey, can you go take this out to the floor and do stock? And I was like, sure, you gotta give me a minute. I'm just getting in. And she's literally not even a minute. She just turns around and starts pulling the freaking cart to go out and do it herself, because I'm sitting there trying to now clear a cart, which we're supposed to have one clear per regulation for sanitational reasons, for food and ready to eat food and chicken that's all on the floor taking to and fro. But when I was trying to do inventory because half the stuff wasn't even inventoried. And that's a pretty critical thing to make sure that we have correct, because we have inventory coming up in probably... We had inventory coming up real quick. That's all I know. And I think it's still coming up to this day right now. And we have to make sure everything's inventoried and correctly numbered. But since she took all that out to the floor and I didn't have time to inventory it, those things are probably not even in the system now, and our offhand is going to be wrong. She already had, and when I was starting to try an inventory, she already came back because she forgot something. She sees me with the handheld in my hand and a printer in my hand with the inventory labels. She immediately takes the printer, or no, she takes the handheld away from me. And at this point, I'm like irritated. I'm like, what the heck? I'm trying to do inventory. Well, stop relying on it, she says. At that point, I was starting to lose it. I was still, it wasn't enough, but I was maintaining myself to the point that I was manageable. But I grabbed the second handheld, because we have 3 handhelds. I grabbed the second one so I can start doing things, and I take the cart out to the floor so I can do stock. And I'm sitting here scanning each item, so that way I can put it on the floor and make sure, at least try to salvage the situation where I didn't do inventory because I couldn't. So when I got it to the floor, I started doing my usual. I started stalking, and she was talking. We were talking, and I guess it was fine for the most part. And then all of a sudden, she sees the handheld again, and is like, "Give me that." I said, "I'm not giving you it. I'm using it for work purposes." She's like, "Give it to me." I said, "No." The third time, she said, "Give it to me now." At that point, I put it in my vest pocket, and I kind of crossed my arms and said, "I'm not giving it to you. I'm using it for work purposes." And she's like, "Do I need to get the manager?" With a sass tone almost. At that point, I was like, "I'm not even going to fight you. Here, take it." So I eventually just basically, she took the handheld and is trying to prevent me from doing my work efficiently with the tools provided to me. So I've tried my best to finish up stalking, and then I go back and do some pinwheels and wraps and trying to do that stuff. And I soon finish it. I chill it, and I was like, I'm going to break. So I go to break, and I since I'm literally walking corner to corner of the entire store, I stop by the registers to pick up myself a coffee to try and calm myself down, because caffeine will calm me down. I finish that up, I go drink my coffee, and eventually I come back and do work, and I finish up my tasks. I clean the slicers, I clean the floor, and then I head home. I'm so wired at this point that I had no rational thoughts. I brought home the negativity, and my roommates weren't having it. It's ended up being something that shouldn't have happened, and I just was trying to calm down, and it went out of proportion quick. After we talked it out, we bought each other like snacks and drinks, and we came home. We resolved everything really quick, and we came to an agreement. And, well, it was just something that it mainly was my faults. And I will admit when something is my fault, because no one should take the blame for something that I did when I knowing that I did it. And it was one of those things that I know it wasn't their fault. I came home in a bad mood. They were having a good day. I ended up turning that around because I had a bad day. And it was just one event after another. But when we sorted it out, everything was right again. I felt like, and honestly, we were chatting. We basically ended up having a good time again. I mean, that's mainly covers it up for Walmart. There's not really much more to say about Walmart, because that pretty much sums it up from day one of working Walmart as a lawn and garden associate in Summersville, West Virginia, to now at the neighborhood market in the place I currently reside. And that's pretty much the story of Walmart.